Right, so we got the developments in one of the most advanced and culturally influential nations on earth. A nation that prides itself on exporting values to others, right? Like they exported the statue to the United States so they can lecture them hundreds of years later. But they're also wiggling the finger at Eastern Europe, and they're like, oh, you Eastern Europeans, you're so corrupt. Why can't you be normal, right? Like, now we're looking at France, and we're wondering. And I also noticed that a lot of Americans are wondering on what's happening with democracy in the European Union. J.D. Vance wasn't the only one. It seems that like a lot of Americans on Twitter are struggling to understand because they thought that we like democracy. Like, we're even trying to import Chinese standards when it comes to cracking down on social media, right? Because the Russian dominated us on TikTok. Like they're way too strong on the internet. The Russians are dominating the internet waves. So we must censor. We must censor people. We must censor a lot of things regarding free speech because we need to protect the democracy. And yet Americans are puzzled, well, how are you protecting democracy if one of the runners-up for the presidential elections, the person that actually had the chance of winning, is now going to be prevented from running. And to be honest, I do understand why the Americans are confused by this, because in the United States, you can actually run from prison. This has been a historical precedent, not once but twice, that there are two people in America that actually ran their presidential campaign from prison. And I do think that in a normal system, you should be able to do that. Because just like the president can give amnesty to a criminal, right? Like someone commits a crime and the president can give amnesty. I think that the people of a nation should have actually more power than the president itself. Like the people in a nation, in any nation that considers itself to be democratic, then the will of the people should be absolute. So if the people are aware of the accusations, they are aware of the evidence brought against the person, they're aware of everything, and despite all that, they still choose to vote for the person to be the president, then I think like the person should actually be able to be on the ballot. And if they manage to win, they should be able to pardon themselves. Again, I otherwise I don't understand like why a president can issue a presidential pardon for a criminal, but like the people who put the president in charge would not be able to choose someone that they consider to be guilty. Now, take into account that this is something that happens in common law as well. They have this concept of jury nullification, where even if a person is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to have committed a crime, the jury can always decide that, no, we're not going to convict this person, we're still finding it not guilty. And they can decide it based on, despite the fact that the person committed the crime, the jury believes that in this situation, in this particular example, the law was unjust or the law doesn't apply or whatever. You know, but it's empowering the people. Like, that's the difference between the American democracy and the European way of thinking, which seems to differ in this manner, where if you're committing certain crimes, you're prevented from running. And so the question happens, like, what about the people that would have felt represented by this lady? Because at the end of the day, I noticed that a lot of journalists and a lot of activists and a lot of politicians don't want to talk about this very important issue. Like, the way they're talking is as if politicians are the ones creating ideas and movements and politicians are running the show, when in reality, in a democracy, it's the people that are running the show. Like, there are certain ideas in society where if enough people resonate with them, then they decide that, okay, well, I want to be represented by this person. So it's the people that are rallying behind the politician. It's not the politician that is rallying the masses. At least that's in theory, right? But regardless of that, all the percentages of people that would have voted for this lady, who are they being represented by now? And the question is, like, is it important for those people to be represented? Because I think, like, this is getting to the core of one of the big issues that the European Union is having in 2025. They unironically seem, at least in some nations, they seem to not to care if certain people are represented at all. So for instance, in Germany, right, you have the AfD, it's the second largest party in the nation. There were talks about making it illegal. Apparently, they decided to go against it. All right. What are the German government doing with the AfD? Well, they have this thing called Cordon Sanitaire. Like, this is their policy, right? So you have like all the parties, the centrists, the leftists, like all of the other parties refusing to engage or to work with the AfD. In other words, you have like the second largest party in the nation, right? So like a huge chunk of your actual citizens, of your population that has various grievances, which you consider to be unjust, which you consider to be unworthy of a debate, which you consider to be unworthy of being brought up. You're basically creating a cordon sanitaire, not around the politicians. You're creating a cordon sanitaire against your own people. And this is not how democracy is supposed to be done, right? Like, democracy is supposed to be done where you have like two people from different sides coming up with various opinions, and then there's a negotiation, and you're trying to come up with a solution that tries to please at least not all, but some of the people that have the grievances. And you're doing this in order to prevent extremism, in order to prevent riots, in order to prevent violence. Like, you're doing this in order to have a free, liberal, and just society. But in the European Union, there seems to be a new way of thinking. And if you look at what they're doing, is like, well, the European Union is coming up with certain policies that aren't very popular. Policies on immigration, policies on farming, policies on how businesses should work. There's a lot of bureaucracy, stifling innovation. I mean, if we compare ourselves with the United States, and you have a lot of money and you can start a business in the US or you can start a business in the European Union, where do you think you're going to have an easier time? Right? So like, there's a lot of negotiations to be done. There's a lot of things to be talked about, but apparently you can't. Because any criticism, no matter how milquetoast, no matter like how, or on what issue, any single criticism to Ursula von der Leyen or the European Union is considered either to be racist and xenophobic if you live in a Western country, or it's considered to be pro-Russian if you live in an Eastern country. Now, I can understand that some criticism against the European Union can indeed be racist, xenophobic, or pro-Putin. But is it like all the criticism? Like literally every single thing that you can say negative about the European Union, any call of reform, any change of leadership, anything is either racist, xenophobic, or pro-Putin? Because at one point, people will start to wonder, like, what if this isn't about racism? What if it's not about xenophobia? What if it's not about Putinism? But it's about a group of people that want to cling to power, that refuse to renounce power no matter what. And this is what people are starting to ask. And the number of people keeps increasing. Like when you pull stuff like this, it looks bad. The optics are horrible. Like, you couldn't have found her guilty up until the election. Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like, you couldn't investigate her then. It's just like a couple of weeks before the election, so that if she makes an appeal, it's very unlikely that she can actually appeal in time so that she can run. And that she focuses more on the appeal rather than her campaign. It looks bad. It does look fucking bad. So what exactly is she accused of? Like, this is another thing. I see a lot of people outraged. It's like, well, she did a crime. And if you do this test, like, notice how they freak out. Like, ask her, like, what exactly did she do? And they will say, she embezzled money. How? And you'll quickly find out that they can't give an answer. And they can't give an answer because they only read the headlines. They don't read the actual articles. They only listen to some journalists give some buzzwords without actually trying to understand what happened. So in the European Union, when you get elected as an MP, you manage to have a significant amount of cash flowing to you. So you're paid for showing up. You're paid as a wage for being an EU MP. And you also have some funds allocated for your aides. These are the people that help you read the legislation, schedule meetings, draft stuff and speeches for you, that type of thing. And so if my understanding is correct, and please do contradict me if I'm wrong in the comments section, because I'm not an expert in French law, but from what I'm reading in the papers, if my understanding is correct, is that the people that were these aides getting paid by the European Union in order to help EU MPs also dedicated part of their time in order to campaign for Le Pen, in order to do work for her at home. So in other words, imagine Guy Verhofstadt. And Guy Verhofstadt is an EU MP. He's got people on the payroll by the European Union to help him write his speeches, schedule his meetings, right? So let's say I'm one of those people, and I'm getting paid by the European Union to do these things for Guy Verhofstadt. However, Guy Verhofstadt, let's say, his party has elections in his country. And so I decide to help with his elections. Like, I volunteer to do work for him at home. Apparently, that's embezzlement. I mean, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a French lawyer. I don't know the French law, but, right? Like, apparently, you're not allowed to do that. But if that's the case, I mean, holy fucking shit. You would be hard-pressed to find a political party in the European Union that doesn't do this. Like, I find it very difficult to believe that this is just, like, only Le Pen's party that does it. But, you know, like, maybe there's other investigations on the way. Who knows? Like, maybe the wheels of justice are slowly turning. And this is not just a European mantra that a lot of people in Eastern Europe have learned it under the Soviet occupation. For my friends, everything. For my enemies, the law. Like, surely this is not what we're talking about here, right? Because the European Union is definitely not like that. And they're just interested in the pursuit of justice. And of course, like, this is such a huge thing that it needed to happen right before elections, and she needs to be prevented from running. Okay. Looks bad. Again, the optics are really bad, especially when this seems to be happening quite often at the world scale. I mean, we noticed Donald Trump before elections, like, all of a sudden there's a lot of lawsuits that are popping up. Mr. Salvini in Italy, also lawsuits popping up. In Romania, another candidate, also the law is cracking down. Now you have this in France. Now, when it happens in Russia, I understand that it's bad. I understand Russia is authoritarian. Like, when it happens in Russia, we can't trust the Russian legal system, which I agree, by the way. No, like, Russia bad, right? Like, if it were to happen in China, if someone gains a lot of popularity in China and it's rivaling Chairman Xi Jinping, and all of a sudden the Chinese legal system cracks down on that person, it looks bad, right? But for some reason, when it's happening in Europe, well, it doesn't look bad. It looks that justice is working. Okay, right. What happens with the people that don't get represented, though? Like, the people that are dissatisfied with the policies that the French government took up until this point and want to vote for change. And they want to vote for someone that represents their ideas and their views. Who do they vote for now? Well, what is the solution for those people? This is a question that no one is asking for some reason. Because if you believe in democracy, at the end of the day, it's not the representative, it's not the politician, it's the people, right? And if you take away, like, a couple of weeks before the election, you take away the people's choice, who is it going to be replaced with? Well, what are those people do? Like, they're still in society. They still have the grievances. You haven't addressed any of their grievances. And so it's really interesting, isn't it? We'll see what happens. Theoretically, she can still, I mean, she will appeal. And theoretically, if the lawsuit is done at an expedient rate, which in this situation I think it should, she does have a chance for an overturn. Right? So, like, she would be allowed to run if the appeal goes through. However, it's a double if. If it's done, if the appeal goes fast enough to get a verdict before the election, and if the judge does consider that the appeal needs to go through. So, it's kind of unlikely that she will run, and even if she will run, obviously, her campaign is going to be affected because she has to focus on this, right? Like, she can't focus on the campaign and this at the same time. It's putting her in a predicament. And so anyway, you know, we used to have a word for this, original democracies. Original democracies is how I compared Eurovision a couple of years ago, and I said that this is going to be the system that will be very predominant in the European Union. And a lot of people laughed at me when I described the system. But I don't know why they laughed, because it turns out I was right. So I'll tell you the story again. I said it like 6 or 7 times on my channel, but I do think once you hear it, you understand how the original democracy is going to function. In the European Union, you have this competition, Eurovision, right? And every single nation sends candidates in front of a jury to decide if they are worthy enough to represent the nation. And in our country, there was this girl that was singing at the church. Like, she was a church choir singer, had an amazing voice, and her songs were very traditional, like Romanian traditional. And from all accounts of purposes, she should have won. The public also voted, and the public voted overwhelmingly on her behalf. Like, Romanians wanted to be represented by this young lady. But unfortunately, there was a referendum in Romania about gay marriage. And she voted incorrectly. And you can understand why. I mean, she was a church-going lady that sings at a choir. And she's asking about the family role in a society. Like, you kind of predict how she voted, right? She voted incorrectly. And despite the fact that the public overwhelmingly voted for her, the judges intervened and they didn't allow her to go through. And so my assessment was that this is an original democracy. You're allowed to vote. You're allowed to state your opinion. You're allowed to do whatever. And as long as your opinion aligns with the interests of the judges, then everything is fine. And you have the illusion of choice, right? Like for instance, if this girl wouldn't get voted, well, the judges would say, well, of course, I mean, she ran, she didn't get voted because she's a bigot. Maybe next time she shouldn't be a bigot and the public will vote for her, right? Like, we didn't stop her. But when they do stop her, then you realize that the whole system is an illusion. It's a mirage. You're only allowed to have an opinion as long as the opinion is the correct one. And you have like 4, 5, 6 different choices. But like, the choices have to align with the view of the judges. The moment it doesn't align, then the judges step in. They take away the person that you liked. And they reshuffle the cards. They do a mulligan. And then you can play the game again, as long as the choice is the correct one. And this is pretty much what I'm seeing at the world stage now. Not as just as a music competition. It's what I'm seeing at a world stage. That the moment someone rises in popularity and in the polls, then, you know, some authority has to step in order to bring the game back on track. In order to make sure that they do a mulligan, they remove the card. It's like, here, you can still play the game. You know, like, imagine in the United States if Donald Trump wouldn't have been able to run. Well, okay, we pull Donald Trump back, we do a mulligan, you get a Nikki Haley, and now you have Nikki Haley versus Kamala Harris. You still have a choice, you can still vote, right? It's just going to be between Nikki Haley and Kamala Harris. And apparently, like, this is the new system. This is the modern democracy, I suppose. The only problem is, what do you do with the people that don't feel represented by Nikki Haley? This is something that Europe will have to come up with an answer soon. I'm actually worried about what the answer will be, because the answer, if we look at human history, seems to be censorship, stifling down on dissent, cracking down on free speech even further. Pretty much the same things that J.D. Vance said when he had his historic speech in the European Union. Because if you don't want to negotiate with people, then, well, they're still there and you gotta shut them up, right? So you can crack down on free speech, you can crack down on social media, you can pass more censorship laws. Concerning. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.